In the last part of today's lab, we are going to pin sheep brains. This is actually a really fun activity to do in class. We get these sheep brains and we're able to cut them and see the different parts of them. So we're going to do a virtual sheep's brain dissection and pinning. So if you look at the bottom of 109 in your lab book, we have pinnings. We have 17 structures. And I want you to try to label them with screen capturing and taking a picture. And you'll have to do a couple. Some of them are external structures like the temporal lobe. Some of them are internal structures. So here's our sheep's brain. And again, you could press play and it will spin around and around. You can move it back and forth. And as you notice, I put in some sections where it was actually cut. So we're going to start with the initial frame. And we have hot spots. We have this one giving the lateral structures, and there's a pink one. So this is the brain. This is rostral. This is caudal. I can tell because that's the spinal cord right there. Now, this right here is the dura mater. And this thin film over the rest of the brain with the blood vessels is the pia mater. Now you notice that the dura mater is actually going between the cerebrum and the cerebellum. That's the cerebellum, everybody. You could even see the folio right there. And that is going to be the tentorium cerebelli. We could also see some of the cranial nerves, which we'll learn in future lab. The olfactory nerve is right there. That's the optic nerve. That's the trigeminal nerve. So the brain is made up of 5 lobes. 4 of them can be viewed here. Now, this is the frontal lobe. To figure out where it ends, we need to find something called the central sulcus. Sulcuses are these groups. So this would be a sulcus. The ridges around it are called gyri. So this right here is the central sulcus. And that means everything anterior to it is the frontal lobe. Most of the stuff posterior to it is the parietal lobe. So this is the central sulcus. This is the post-central gyrus. This is the pre-central gyrus. So, yeah, the frontal lobe, that is 5. And the parietal lobe is 11. If you want to, you could label this post-central gyrus, pre-central gyrus, central sulcus. Now, magically, back here, there's the parietal occipital sulcus. My guess is, since that is this last sulcus, it's there, which would make this the occipital lobe. Now, this right here is the temporal lobe, which would be 16. And while we're on this pinning, this is the optic nerve, so the optic chiasm, which is 10, would be right there. The olfactory bulb would be right there, and that is 9. So as I rotate, I could sort of see the difference between the cerebellum and the cerebrum. So cerebellum cerebrum. And the cerebellum is 3, by the way. There's the spinal cord. It thickens a little bit, so that would be the medulla oblongata. I don't really have a nice bulge on the sheep's brain, but that would be the pons, which would be 14. So I could rotate it around. And this is the longitudinal fissure. It is separating the right side of the brain from the left side. And you can see the folia of the cerebellum are quite different from the gyri of the cerebrum. So I'm going to keep rotating, and presto, it has been cut in half. So this is a mid-sagittal section. I can see the white matter, I can see some of the gray matter on this section. So again, we have the spinal cord. This would be the medulla oblongata. And that little thing right there is probably the pons. This is the thalamus. This whole area is the thalamus. The epithalamus is up here, and the hypothalamus is down there. This right here is the pituitary gland. I only got glandular tissue on that, but the pituitary gland is 13. And this is the fornix up there. Now, notice it's white matter. So this is white. This is all gray. That's gray matter. Those are cell bodies. Now, this white matter tract right there is the corpus callosum. That's number 4. And that's the main bridge from the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain. Now, this is the septum pendiculum, and behind it is one of the lateral ventricles. The third ventricle would be right here. I cut it weird. I actually managed to get white matter in the cut. And then the fourth ventricle is right here between the pons and the cerebellum. Now look at the cerebellum. It's one of my favorite structures. We have this white matter tract, and it goes out and it's spreading out like a leaf of a tree. So this is called the arbor vitae, which is number 2. That is the tree of life. And it's very pretty. Now we have some other white matter tracts. This would be an association tract. It's going between structures in the frontal lobe here. Now another structure that I could sort of see here is right there. It's a very thin part. That's the mesencephalon or midbrain. That's what's number 8 on the pinning. And that is going to have some important nuclei in it as well. And lastly, this thing hiding up here is the pineal gland. It makes melatonin. So look at the brain. We have a couple other views as we rotate. So here, I actually did a transverse section. So this is all the corpus callosum. I tried to dig in right there to get into the ventricle. I didn't succeed very well. You can see all these association tracts between the parts. So, and then if you keep rotating, you could see a mid-sagittal section here. So the septum pendiculum has been cut away a little bit there. So you could sort of see into the ventricle. We don't have any of the pituitary on this side. We could sort of see the difference between the diencephalon and the brainstem. And we could see the arbor vitae a little bit clearer. So I would like you to make the screenshots. I would like you to pin or label those structures. Thank you.